Hi everyone and welcome to your English language lesson for this week. So you will have noticed I am not in fact Mr Davies, I am Mrs Brumming, and at the end of every week I will be doing an English language lesson with you. So can you please get everything that is in that box there and set out your title and date just like I've done in the example below. Press pause and then press play when you have completed that. Okay, so let's get started as we usually do with our 5 a day. So 5 questions plus an extension, which I know you can all reach. Full sentences, give yourselves 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Off you go. And 3, 2, 1, pens up and drop and green pens up. And ticking and correcting your answers, please. Once you've done that, press play again and you will notice that my background is about to change. Okay, so our objective for today then is we're going to be practicing analysing language. So this is really important for your English language GCSE, which is separate to your literature GCSE. But it also crosses over with what you've been doing with Mr Davies in your previous lessons on unseen poetry. So we're looking specifically at ways that you can analyse language. So we will start though with some retrieval practice. So you're not going to pause the video this time. Instead, you are going to have 35 seconds to try and write down the correct terms, literary terms that match these definitions. So 35 seconds. Can you beat my timer? Go. Halfway through. And 3, 2, 1, and green pens up and ready. And here's your answers then. So comparison using like or as is a simile. That repetition of the same letter is alliteration. The feeling or idea that's suggested by a word is a connotation. The repeated use of the S sound is sibilance. And a group of linked words is a semantic field. And finally, describing something in a way that is not literally true in order to make a comparison is a metaphor. Did we get 6 out of 6? I'm sure lots of you did. Okay, so we're going to start with a word of the week then. So this is a word that's going to link to today's lesson, but also is going to really link to some of the poetry that Mr Davies is going to do with you next week. So the word of the week then is malevolent. Something malevolent causes or wants to cause harm or evil. Malevolent. You might want to say that back to me. Malevolent. And you can see here, I've got this nice Disney villain here. She's called Maleficent, okay, Maleficent. So that mal, which is the prefix from Latin, which means bad. You know, the Disney villains are malevolent characters. They want to always cause harm and evil. So copy that down and then press play when you're ready to begin. Okay, so the word class then, so malevolent itself is an adjective, so you describe somebody or something as malevolent. Malevolence would be the abstract noun, so the kind of the feeling of malevolence or the way of doing something. And then malevolently would be the adverb, so you could do something in a malevolent way, which would be described as malevolently. So again, if we look at the word root just down there, mal means ill, okay, or bad, and volent means wishing. So it's like you're wishing ill or wishing bad on somebody else. So we can look at some other words there that have that same prefix mal. So malodorous, something that has a bad smell. Malformed, something that is badly formed. Or malign, something with a kind of bad, evil kind of nature. So here it is in a sentence then. So Lady Macbeth's malevolent intentions are revealed in her first soliloquy. Lady Macbeth's malevolent intentions are revealed in her first soliloquy. So my question then to have a think about is, which other characters in Macbeth could be described as malevolent? Have a think. So I'm hoping what's coming straight to your mind there are the witches, okay? The witches have malevolent intentions. They wish harm, they wish these evil things to happen to Scotland. Potentially some of you are thinking about Macbeth as well. His intentions are certainly malevolent when he decides to kill and murder King Duncan. So it's similar to the word evil, malevolent, as they both imply immorality and wickedness. However, evil is kind of worse. It's more pejorative, okay, a more negative word really, because evil is the complete opposite to good. It's a force that's associated with the devil. So somebody could have malevolent intentions without being completely evil. So you may sometimes have malevolent intentions. You may wish harm on something or somebody at times, but it doesn't make you completely evil. It makes you not potentially a very nice person at that particular time, but not completely evil. Evil would be you are the complete opposite to good and you have no redeeming features. So here are our 4 questions then. So you have 4 minutes, so set that timer for 4 minutes, answer in full sentences in any order that you like, and press play when you have completed your answers. Off you go. Okay, so, well, we already kind of talked about number 1, didn't we? So you can give yourself a big tick with your green pen if you wrote down the witches or Lady Macbeth or even Macbeth himself. An example of a malevolent act in Macbeth is, well, the regicide would be a really malevolent act, but also you may want to talk about, you may have talked about the plotting of the murder, you may talk about the witches and their kind of spell and their attempts to create chaos in Scotland. Scrooge's treatment of Bob Cratchit, is that malevolent? Well, that's a slightly trickier one, really, because this kind of is a bit up for interpretation. So I think you would potentially say that, yes, maybe it is malevolent when he doesn't allow him to kind of put the extra coal in the fire or build this bigger fire, and that potentially be causing him some harm. But really, I don't think Scrooge actually wants to cause Bob Cratchit harm. I think it's more that he doesn't recognise, he's very myopic, he doesn't recognise how his kind of miserly actions are impacting Bob Cratchit in a bad way. Because of course, once he does realise that, then he kind of treats him in a benevolent way, okay, the opposite, benevolent way, at the end of the book. So final question then, describing nature as malevolent, well, that is an example of personification. So give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Okay, so on to the language analysis part of the lesson then. So whenever we're looking at language analysis, there are 4 steps to success. Okay, so it's going to be worth you writing these down into your exercise books now. And hopefully you've all got those written down now and you're back with me, so I'll just talk you through them. So you would first of all, just like any kind of question, you would read the question and you'd highlight the keywords. You'd then read whatever it is that you're asked to analyse and think about the overall impression created by the language. Then you'd find the most striking and significant language choices, and then you explain how those choices create a particular impression. And we're going to take this step by step this lesson. So here is our question then. So how does the writer use language to describe Coketown? Now, Coketown is a fictional town, which we'll talk about a bit in a minute, but we're thinking about how the writer describes a place called Coketown. So first thing I want you to do is to write down the question into your books and then highlight the key word. Okay, remember, a key word is the topic that we are being asked to write about. So pause the video now and press play when you're done. Okay, so green pens out then, please. So we should have underlined Coketown. That should be the key word. But I'm imagining that some of you may have underlined some slightly different words. So we're going to talk through why some of the other words are not keywords. So how is not a keyword? Because it is a command word, okay? How is not a topic? Okay, it's not a subject, it's a command word. So that's not the keyword. Some of you may have underlined writer, and that is also not a topic, okay? Writer isn't a topic. It's not what we're being asked to write about, okay? That's not the subject. That's not what we don't get an impression of a writer through, through the language. We're looking for the impression of the town, of Coketown. The other one, a bit tricky, this one, is you may have underlined is language. But the reason why language isn't a keyword is because it's not specific enough. Okay, the keyword is a word that has the greatest significance in terms of what we are being asked to write about. And what we're being asked to write about is Coketown, okay? And if we're not writing about Coketown, if we're writing about a character or something like that, we're not going to get the marks in that exam. So if you didn't get any of those, can you just track why you've made the error that you've made so that we don't make it in future? Okay, so we've now read the question and we've highlighted the keyword, so you can give us a big tick next to the first step to success, and we'll now move on to the second. So the second one then is reading the extract and thinking about the overall impression created by the language. Just before we read the extract though, just to give you a bit of context, so the extract is from a book called Hard Times, which was written by Charles Dickens, who you should recognise as the author of A Christmas Carol. So he wrote Hard Times after A Christmas Carol in 1854, and the book is set in a fictionalised northern industrial town. So you can see in the image down there, that's an image of Coketown. So it's very industrialised. You can see all the factories, all the smoke coming out of the chimneys. And the book is all about how difficult the economic and social conditions are in industrialised England. And we know this, don't we, from A Christmas Carol. We know that life is very difficult for the working classes during the Industrial Revolution. And the other thing I'm just going to fill you in on before we read is just two words that are going to come up that I just want to make sure you're clear on. So the first one is a canal. We're going to read about a canal. And this is a picture of a canal in Birmingham. And it's a long, thin, man-made stretch of water. So it's not a natural stretch of water, a canal. Okay, it's made to transport, normally in the Industrial Revolution, it would have been to transport goods to the kind of factories and away from them. And the second one here is a piston. So a piston is part of an engine that moves up and down. So you can see here in the image down there, that's the piston. It's something that kind of continuously moves up and down in order to kind of help power the engine. Okay, so I think we're ready to read now. So here is our extract. So you can follow along with me. It was a town of red brick, or of brick that would have been red if the smoke and ashes had allowed it. But as matters stood, it was a town of unnatural red and black, like the painted face of a savage. It was a town of machinery and tall chimneys, out of which interminable serpents of smoke trailed themselves for ever and never got uncoiled. It had a black canal in it, and a river that ran purple with ill-smelling dye, and vast piles of building full of windows where there was a rattling and a trembling all day long, and where the piston of the steam engine worked monotonously up and down like the head of an elephant in a state of melancholy madness. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video, have a reread on your own, and think about, do you get a positive or negative impression of Coketown? Now, there's some keywords there in the box just down there if you're not sure what those mean. Pause now and have a think about positive or negative. So for me, this is a very I get a negative impression of Coketown. It does not sound like a place where I would like to live, okay? And we're going to start to think about how the language used creates this negative impression. So the first thing that I would like you to do is to write down 7 to 10 words or phrases that give you a negative impression of Coketown. So pause now and write down, I think you can all get 10. So aim for 10 words or phrases that give you a negative impression of Coketown. Okay, let's get those green pens out then, please. And here are loads that I came up with. You can definitely add to your lists if you would like to. You've got smoke and ashes, unnatural, black, savage, machinery, serpents of smoke, forever and ever. That river, I mean, a purple river that is ill smelling or malodorous, we could even say. Rattling, trembling, monotonously, melancholy, madness. So we've got all of these words that create this negative impression. So we need to think now, because actually saying negative, a negative impression, that's not very specific, and it's not going to get us the very highest marks on our exam. What we really want to do is kind of narrow down, because negative could be anything. It could be lots of different things are negative. We want to narrow it down to a much more specific word. So I've kind of put all of those words that I highlighted in green there into a box here, and I just want you to think about the ones that I've highlighted in red. So there's 3 options here, and I want you to write down the sentence underneath. So just down there. The first group of words suggest Coketown is a place of, and do you think it's a place of danger, a place of suffering, or a place of melancholy? Just from the words in red. Okay, so savage, serpents of smoke, ill-smelling, rattling, trembling, and madness. Which of the 3 words do they link to best? Okay, pick that word and complete the sentence. Okay, do that now, please. And green pen's ready then. And we should have had the word danger there. Okay, so all of these words are linked with danger. Okay, serpents, quite dangerous. Something savage, very dangerous, violent. Something if it smells bad, potentially links to disease, which again is quite dangerous. And if buildings are rattling and trembling, I mean, that sounds like they might be about to fall down. Again, very dangerous. An elephant who's swinging its head around in madness, very dangerous. Okay, so yes, I think, suffering and melancholy could link to the whole of Coketown, but these words in red definitely dangerous, not melancholic. Melancholic is kind of boring and sad, and serpents and madness aren't necessarily linked with that. So our first one is danger. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again, but some different words now highlighted in red here. So do we think this second group of words suggests that Coketown is a place of evil, a place, or we could say malevolence, a place of melancholy, or a place of corruption? Off you go. And green pens ready then, please. And it's corruption this time. Okay, so again, evil. Some of you may potentially have written evil if you've made that link with the serpents, and I think that maybe could be correct there. But if we're thinking about the group of words as a whole, I think the black river that ran purple, and that is nature has been corrupted by industrialization there, hasn't it? It's been turned into something ill-smelling and an unnatural color for a river. We've also got the word unnatural. That's a bit of a giveaway there, and the smoke and the ashes. Okay, so the second group of words then is linking with corruption. And finally then, number 3. Do we think these words give an impression of pain, monotonous melancholy, or malevolence? Okay, so this third group of words, which does it suggest? And if you don't remember what monotonous melancholy means, you can go back, and it was in the keyword definition box. Okay, press pause and play when you're ready to begin again. And green pen's ready then. So this time, this was the monotonous melancholy. Okay, so forever and ever, all day long. We've even got monotonous and melancholy there for you. Interminable, something that never stops. And so Coketown is a really miserable place. It's actually quite dangerous to the workers, and a place where all of this misery just will continue forever, and it seems as if nothing is ever going to change. So we now have enough information to write our points. Okay, so how does the writer use language to describe Coketown? Well, we've just come up with 3 different adjectives to describe the impression we get of Coketown. So can you use those 3 adjectives to complete this sentence at the bottom? Okay, press pause and then play when you're ready. So we should have something that looks like this. So the language used by the writer depicts Coketown as a place of danger, corruption, and monotonous melancholy. Okay, really well done for completing that first part of the language analysis then. So we can give ourselves a tick now for the second one. So we've read the question, we've highlighted the keyword, we've read the extract, and we thought about the overall impression created by the language. So tick, tick. We're now going to move on to number 3. So number 3 is where we're going to bring back our retrieval practice from the start of the lesson. So we're now going to be looking for all of those really significant language choices which are going to probably be one of those literary terms to think about exactly how that impression is created. So I would like you to pause the video and I'd like you to find an example of each of these techniques. And if you don't remember the definitions of the techniques, you can rewind and look back at our retrieval practice. So pause the video, read the extract and write down an example of each of these techniques. For the semantic field of danger, so remember a semantic field is a group of linked words, you can just write out kind of 3 or 4 words that create that sense of danger. Pause the video now then, and then play when you're ready. So we will go through them one by one. So the similes that you could have had, green pens at the ready. Well, there's 2 similes here. So we had here like the painted face of a savage and like the head of an elephant in a state of melancholy madness. Okay, so tick those if you got them right, or add them in your greens if you didn't. For the alliteration, again, we've got 2 examples here. So we've got serpents of smoke. Now remember, serpents of smoke is a special kind of alliteration called sibilance, that's it. And the final one, melancholy madness. Okay, the repetition of the M sound. The next one I asked you to find then was a metaphor. So again, it's this one, isn't it? Interminable serpents of smoke trailed themselves forever and ever and never got uncoiled. Okay, the smoke aren't actually serpents. They are just, that in itself is a metaphor. Okay, and the semantic field of danger then, well, I've kind of in green, I put all of the different words I think you could have used, but my 3 favourite ones would be savage because of that link with violence, serpents because, well, a snake is very dangerous, and also trembling because it kind of has connotations of pain. Okay, so we've now found all of those techniques and we have some quotations that we could use to analyse. So I've got 3 quotations here, like the painted face of a savage, like the head of an elephant in a state of melancholy madness, and the interminable serpents of smoke trailed themselves forever and ever and never got uncoiled. And those to me are the most significant and striking language choices, and the most significant and striking language choices are always very likely to be the ones that are literary terms, okay? And that, I mean, that's why we study them, don't we? Because, you know, you use a simile and it really does create this strong imagery in your head. And also, furthermore, these quotations, some of them are double, aren't they? We've got we've got simile, the head of an elephant, but then we've also got melancholy madness, which is alliteration. So that gives us even more to talk about. So we're looking at a kind of a non-example, a really rubbish example of a quotation that we might want to pick, you know, but as matters stood. I mean, what are we going to write about that? If we were going to write this up into a paragraph and we use that as our quotation, we'd have nothing really to write about because it's not strong imagery. And there's no words there that have really strong connotations. So I'm going to just choose one of these to write about, and for me the one that I really like and want to write about, because I feel like this is the one that has the words with the strongest connotations. It's what I think that I really can think of a few different things to say about it, is quotation number 3. So go back to the steps to success there. So we've done number 3 now. We found those most significant and striking language choices, so we can tick that off on our list before we write down in our exercise books our favourite one that we're going to focus on for the rest of the lesson. And that is this one here, number 3. So can you please get that down into your exercise books? You don't need the bit underneath. That's what we wrote down earlier in the lesson. So just the quotation in the box, please. Write that down and then press play once you've done that. So once we've got that written down, we can think about, well, we already know what the overall effect is of this metaphor because we've thought about it earlier in the lesson, okay? We know it's going to link to either that danger, corruption, or that sense of monotonous melancholy, and maybe potentially all of them. What we now need to do is step 4. We need to explain how these choices, so how that quotation creates that impression. And the way that we explain how language creates a particular impression is by talking about connotations. So which words have strong connotations in this quotation. So you've just written it down in your exercise books. Can you please highlight the words that have the strongest connotations? Okay, connotations, associations, things that we associate with the words. Okay, highlight that now, please. Okay, so let's get have our highlighters in hand, and I think these are probably the three that have the strongest connotations. Okay, serpent, smoke, and uncoiled. Now, potentially, some of you may have written down interminable. However, interminable means something that won't stop, and so it's probably quite likely that you're thinking the connotations of interminable is kind of something that's unstoppable. Maybe potentially relentless. So if you did highlight that, I think it's okay, but it's better to choose something that where a connotation isn't that closely linked to the exact meaning of the word, because you don't want to fall into the trap of saying that it has a connotation of something that it actually means. So you don't want to say, interminable has connotations of something not stopping, because that's not a connotation, that's what it actually means. So I've gone for these three because I know I'm not going to fall into that trap of writing down what the word means rather than the connotation. So I'd like you to now draw this table out into your exercise books. And what you're going to do is you're going to firstly just fill in the words for me. So I've done the connotations for you. I would like you to fill in the words, so either serpent, smoke, or uncoiled, that matches that particular connotation. Now I've just put down there a little image of a snake that is coiled up. So when we're thinking about uncoiled, it's when a snake is kind of coming away from that kind of resting or sleeping position and uncoiling itself. That might help you out. So just write out the table nice and neat with a ruler and then complete those words, please. How did we do? So the first one, uncoiled, the second one, serpent, and the third one, smoke. Okay, so smoke, something's very smoky. You can't see very well, can you? So that's that connotation of blindness. The serpent is that biblical allusion, isn't it? So I know that you did that in some previous lessons with Mr. Davies, thinking about Christmas Carol and Tiny Tim. So serpent is a biblical allusion to the Garden of Eden. So a serpent, in literature, if you ever see a serpent, you should be thinking about that link with sin and that link with evil. And finally, that uncoiled, if a snake is uncoiling itself, it's normally because it's ready to move or there's some kind of change happening. So we've completed the word then, so you know what's coming next. I'm now going to ask you to think about what each of those words and the connotations suggest to the reader. So I've done the first one for you here. So uncoiled has connotations of movement or change, and so the fact that it never uncoils would suggest that Coketown is a place of relentless, interminable misery. Okay, so serpent has connotations of evil or sin. What does that suggest about Coketown? That Coketown is a place of what? And fill that in your box. And the same with smoke. The fact that the town is covered with smoke, kind of connotations of blindness or darkness. What does that suggest to the reader about Coketown? Okay, so press pause, give that your best shot, and come back when you have completed it. Okay, ready to go through some answers? Here we go then. So you, of course, would maybe have some slightly different answers, but definitely add to your notes or kind of tick if you've got anything similar to mine. So a serpent then, we've got that link with evil and with sin. So I would think it suggests that Coketown is an evil place. It's been corrupted by the sins of industrialization. And actually, that kind of link with danger that we talked about, and that semantic field of danger that serpent is a part of, suggests that actually it's quite a threatening place to live. And we know that, don't we, from what we know about industrialised Britain and the factories and kind of how dangerous a place they were to work. And then smoke, I think potentially two different interpretations here, and I'm sure that lots of you have got a different one. If something is really smoky, that maybe it's suggesting that Coketown is a place that's so industrialised that people are blinded to joy. They can't see beyond the kind of smoky grime, that moral filth of the place. Or perhaps it could be a link to the factory owners themselves, and maybe they are blind to the suffering of their workers, and they're kind of, they can't see through the smoke and the darkness to kind of the fact that they are, they are living in this kind of sinful, corrupted place of industrialization. So pause the video while you add to your notes, because once we have that complete, we have everything that we need to write up our final analysis. And here is everything that we need then. So we have our point that we already wrote down earlier in the lesson up there. We also have our quotation here. And now we have our analysis. Okay, so we've got our point, we've got our quote, and we've got our analysis. And that is everything that we need to write a really fantastic paragraph. And here is the paragraph then. So I would like you to write it out, filling in the gaps using your table to help you. Okay, so write out the full paragraph so you're getting into that kind of habit of writing out paragraphs. The only little thing, just because it might cause confusion, is after serpents of smokes, I've got a ... So that's not a space for you to complete a missing word. It's just because I've missed out part of the quotation. So the only ones you need to fill in as kind of missing as the gap fill are the kind of straight continuous lines. So pause the video and have a go at completing that paragraph. Off you go. Are we all done then? Are we ready to get our green pens out and go through the answers? Here we go then. So I'm not going to read the paragraph out to you. You have eyes, you can read that yourself. So I leave that on the screen for you to check and correct your answers. And post it up to Padlet onto the Google Classroom. We would love to read your work. So once we have reread that paragraph, changed anything, added anything to your paragraph, press play and we will finish the lesson. So pause now. And hopefully we are all done now then. So we can do our final tick then now, can't we? We have now explained how these choices create this impression. So we thought about the connotations and we've written it all up into a really fantastic paragraph that I cannot wait to read. So what do you do now then? Well, now what you need to do is complete the exit ticket underneath the lesson on the Google form. Upload, like I said, upload this work to Padlet. We would love to read it. And I will see you next week. Work hard in those lessons with Mr. Davies. Goodbye.